Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be making a prediction for the 2024 Senate races, and I wanted to put this out a little bit earlier, but I felt like I might run into April 1st and I didn't want people to think it was an April Fool's joke. But anyway, let's get right into it. There's currently 34 states up for grab. The Senate currently stands at 50-50 with Vice President Kamala Harris breaking any tiebreakers, and Democrats have 28 seats versus Republicans 38 seats. So right off the bat, I want to stress that this is the Republicans' race to lose. They're starting off on a good foot, but that also means they have a lot less ground to gain electorally. So let's jump into the states individually. And I won't waste your time covering super solid states with incumbents, so let's just run through those real quick. For Democrats, there's Chris Murphy in Connecticut. Lisa Blunt Rochester, while not an incumbent, is expected to win handily in Delaware. Mazie Hirono in Hawaii, Elizabeth Warren in Massachusetts, Amy Klobuchar in Minnesota, Martin Heinrich in New Mexico, Kirsten Gillibrand in New York, Sheldon Whitehouse in Rhode Island, Tim Kaine in Virginia, and Maria Cantwell in Washington. I should also mention the independents Angus King and Bernie Sanders, who are currently running for re-election and are caucusing with Democrats. Those seats are safe for them as well. For the Republicans, we have Mike Braun in Indiana, Roger Wicker in Mississippi, Josh Hawley in Missouri, Deb Fischer in Nebraska. Also, since this is the first time since 1954 where both Nebraska's Senate seats are up for election, Pete Ricketts is also a solid R. So there's two pickups for the Republicans right off the bat. Kevin Cramer in North Dakota, Marsha Blackburn in Tennessee, John Barrasso in Wyoming, and briefly, though Mitt Romney is no longer running for re-election as the senator of Utah, whoever the nominee is will likely become the next senator. The primary elections will take place on June 25th, and currently John Curtis, the U.S. representative from the 3rd District, is polling the highest. And keen-eyed viewers will probably notice that I'm leaving out a couple of states that should be solid Republican or Democrat, but that's because I want to cover those in a little bit more depth as we go along. Okay, so starting with Arizona, Kyrsten Sinema dropped out 3 weeks ago, so it looks like Kari Lake and Ruben Gallego are going head-to-head. Arizona just held its presidential primaries on the 19th, but their Senate primaries won't be until August. Until then, we can assume that the frontrunners are going to face off, and right now it looks like Gallego is in a better position to win. Recent polling shows that he's a few points ahead of Lake on average, and the most recent being an Emerson College poll showing him at +1 to almost 2 ahead of her. This race is still considered a toss-up, so it's not a guaranteed win for Gallego, but I'm still going to put it as a lean Democrat. Moving on to California, we have the top two candidates from the primaries, Democrat Adam Schiff and Republican Steve Garvey. While Garvey had a good showing during the primary, it's going to take a lot to beat Adam Schiff in such a blue state, and I'm not optimistic about his chances. Pretty solid D, unless we see some kind of neoliberal Reagan-style resurgency of California Republicanism. In Florida, we've got incumbent Republican Senator Rick Scott, who's only narrowly leading Democratic challenger Debbie McCarcel-Powell by about 3 points. But it's important to keep in mind that both of these polls were conducted by left-leaning pollsters, and he's still leading about 44% to 41%. And because the margin of error is 3.5%, depending on how you look at it, they're either tied or Rick Scott is comfortably ahead. Scott isn't exactly popular and has a 44% disapproval rating, but the biggest obstacle for McCarcel-Powell is going to be name recognition, because almost 2/3 of the respondents in both of these polls either didn't know her or were unsure about her. Based solely on these polls and Rick Scott's unfavorability, this is still a likely Republican win, but we're going to have to see what turnout is like in August 20th when Florida holds its primaries. In Maryland, 3-term Senator Ben Cardin is not running for re-election, and a state that should have been a decently easy pickup for Democrats is suddenly in play with the entrance of Maryland's popular Republican governor, Larry Hogan, who's long been a moderate leader that's been able to distance himself from the Trump crowd. In nearly every single poll, Hogan is leading his Democratic opponents by double digits, with almost 2/3 of respondents holding a favorable opinion of him. Though the most recent poll has a higher margin of error than I'd like, the tabs show that even Democrats are willing to vote for him over either of the Democratic candidates. But we'll see if they change their tune after their primaries. So surprisingly, Maryland is currently leaning R in a possible pickup for Republicans. Moving on to Michigan, where Debbie Stabenow announced she would not be running for re-election, and Alyssa Slotkin, the representative from Michigan's 7th District, is leading in the polls by quite a wide margin. She will likely face off against Mike Rogers, a former U.S. representative from the 8th District, who's leading by about 15 to 20 points in Republican polls. A matchup between the two in an Emerson College poll shows Slotkin leading by about 2 points compared to February, where an Epic MRA poll showed her leading by just 1. Michigan is expected to be a pretty critical swing state during this election, and Slotkin's success might hinge on turnout, which could be hampered by the uncommitted movement against President Joe Biden. We'll have to wait and see whether this affects her in the primary elections, which take place on August 6th, but I'm putting Michigan as a lean D for now. Heading west to Montana, we have incumbent moderate Democratic Senator Jon Tester, who's continuously won the state despite fierce competition. Tim Sheehy is the likely Republican nominee, but against Tester, he is still behind in the polls. This is definitely going to be a tentative race and one to keep an eye on, but for now I'm going to put it as the leanest of lean Ds. We'll see if Jon Tester has one more nail-biter win left in him. Now we go to the East Coast in New Jersey, where Democratic Senator Bob Menendez is embroiled in a scandal that's resulted in a federal indictment, and he's been dismissing calls to resign while also not indicating he's going to seek re-election as a Democrat. Just a few days before I started making this video, the First Lady of New Jersey, Tammy Murphy, announced she was suspending her campaign, which virtually assures that Representative Andy Kim of New Jersey's 3rd District will become the Democratic nominee and will likely become the next senator of this very blue state, with no signs of any considerable Republican opposition on the horizon. All that to say, solid D, but specifically for Representative Andy Kim. In Nevada, we have Jackie Rosen running for re-election in this very purple state, though she won by about 5% in 2018. Recent polling shows that against most Republicans, Jackie Rosen is poised to win by nearly double digits, except for one. Sam Brown, a business owner and veteran notable for his visible burn injuries caused by an IED explosion in Afghanistan, is currently polling way ahead of the other Republican challengers. Brown previously ran for Senate in 2020, losing to Adam Laxalt in the primary. Should Jackie Rosen and Sam Brown face off, current polling only gives Rosen about a +2 to 3 edge. This is definitely a lean D state, but on June 11th, we'll see just how enthusiastic turnout for both of these candidates will be. On to the bellwether state of Ohio, popular Democratic Senator Sherrod Brown is running for re-election against Bernie Moreno, who won the Republican primary on March 19th. It's worth noting that there was a concerted effort by Democrats to fund Moreno's campaign, perceiving him to be a weaker candidate than Matt Dolan against Sherrod Brown, and their plan seems to have worked. In recent polling, Matt Dolan, a previous Senate candidate, was only a couple points behind Brown and sometimes even ahead, whereas Bernie Moreno was behind by a few points or more. We'll have to see where polling goes from here, but Sherrod Brown has proven to be a tough opponent to beat in the past. He first won in 2006 against current Governor Mike DeWine by double digits. Since then, he's consistently beat Republicans by about 5% or more, and I don't really expect that to change this time around. So I'm putting him as a lean D, closer to likely than a toss-up, so pretty strong lean. Just to the east in Pennsylvania, we have Democratic Senator Bob Casey, who has a proven track record of beating Republicans, running for re-election against the presumptive Republican nominee, David McCormick. Polling shows Casey pretty comfortably ahead, sometimes by double digits, even in Republican internal polls. Even Real Clear polling, which has a bit of a Republican bias, shows Casey ahead by about +5. By contrast, some of the same polls show Biden and Trump in a virtual tie. So we'll have to see how the down-ballot voters will affect this election, but I'm still giving this race a pretty strong lean D. In the great state of Texas, Ted Cruz is expected to hold his seat, but some polling shows that Democratic candidate Colin Allred might have a shot. Might. Back in February, a University of Texas at Tyler poll showed Allred and Cruz in a dead even split at 41%, but that same poll shows Allred winning independents by about 10%. Unfortunately, this might not be a very accurate way to read it because nearly 53% of those same independents said they were unsure or would vote for somebody else. But among Hispanic and Black voters, Colin Allred is leading handily, so depending on the turnout, he could have a shot. We'll have to see where polling goes from here because Ted Cruz is a notoriously unpopular Republican senator, not just nationally, but also in his home state, and notably won by only a few points against Democratic candidate Beto O'Rourke back in 2018. Colin Allred is a bit more moderate than O'Rourke, so we'll see if he pulls more independents this time around, as they currently account for nearly 25% of the electorate in Texas. I'm still putting this as a likely R for now, but this is still subject to change. Back up the Appalachian Trail, we have West Virginia, where Democratic Senator Joe Manchin has declined to run for re-election, at least as a Democrat. He hasn't rolled out running as an independent. West Virginia as a state is already extremely red, and Manchin was the one Democratic thread holding it together. With Republican Governor Jim Justice in the race, Manchin virtually has no chance of re-election, whether as a Democrat or independent. I'm putting this race as a solid R, regardless of who's on the ticket. Now over in Wisconsin, Democratic Senator Tammy Baldwin will face a pretty competitive race regardless of who the Republican nominee is, one of whom is Eric Hovda, who previously ran for Senate in 2012 but lost in the primaries to former Governor Tommy Thompson, who then lost to Baldwin by 6 points. From there, Baldwin overperformed in 2018, winning by 11 points. Though polling in March shows her only narrowly beating Hovda by 3 points, I'm willing to bet that she would overperform once again against him. However, there is one notable Republican who has not thrown their hat into the ring, and that's Sheriff of Milwaukee County David Clark, a notable figure on the conservative right, who's frequently appeared as a guest on Fox News and the RNC. Should he decide to jump in the race in the next couple of weeks before the primary, he's currently projected to beat out every other Republican candidate. Now, Clark has flip-flopped between expressing interest in running and shooting down claims outright, but I'll keep an open ear for his decision this month, if there is one. If he is the Republican nominee, I think that this would be a much tougher race for Tammy Baldwin, but until that happens, I'm still rating this a lean D. So that's it. When all is said and done, it's 51 Republicans, 49 Democrats and liberal independents, with 2 flips for Republicans in West Virginia and Maryland, though one will most certainly be more partisan than the other. The states to win for Republicans are definitely going to be Arizona, Ohio, Montana, and Wisconsin, and the Democrats' best shot at gaining seats are in Florida and Texas, and holding on to Maryland as tight as they possibly can. Once all these states have held their primaries by August, I'll make another prediction showing my thoughts for certain races based on turnout, so comment down below if you think I missed something, or if you have a different interpretation of one of these races. I would love to read your takes, and thanks so much for watching. Remember to like, share, and take care.